Hi everyone, welcome to another exciting edition of Words, Images, and Worlds. It's a tandem bike edition. We have not one, but two writers in addition to myself on this episode, and that would be Amit Tishler. Amit, we talked over the summer when you were launching Eden Frost, and I hope that's gone well.
Yes, indeed. Thank you so much.
Yeah, it's a great book, great book. And I am also joined by Elliot Sperl. Elliot, this is the first time we've talked, but I have read your resume. I know there's Bob's Burgers somewhere in the background, as well as
Oh,
other
definitely.
animated features. So glad to have you and glad to be talking with you as well.
Great meeting you too. Yeah, it's great being here.
Thanks for coming. Thank you both for coming. The
Of
book in question, I believe I've looked at some pages from it. I'm going to say rom-com. Is that right? It's
Oh, yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
totally.
absolutely.
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Absolutely. The meet cute is fantastic.
Mhm,
And that is
mhm.
Last Wardens. The Last Wardens is that book. Which for those listeners out there that don't catch the irony, it's not exactly a rom-com. Not exactly. But
I mean, depends on how you look at it.
right, right,
I guess
right.
depends on how you look at really anything.
True. Very true. Very true.
Art's very subjective. It's great.
Mm.
It's absolutely. And you both get to bring your talents to this book. So how did the two of you meet and how did this come to be?
We
Oof.
met actually working at an animation studio. I believe it was Starburns was the first one where we met on HBO's Animals. I was down in the basement with a bunch of other animators, and they're like, "Hey, maybe you should come upstairs and meet some people." I was like, "I'm not so sure," but lo and behold, I met Amit, and it we he brought me on to some other projects, and we just started talking about developing things, and it's kind of gone from there. We realized we had a lot in common.
Yeah. And then we just started, like developing our own stuff. And it was all about uniting under producing original stories in honestly any medium that we're passionate about, whether it's games, TV, comics, finger puppets, anything goes. We're
Mm,
big media consumers.
love it. I'm excited for the finger puppets then. I'm expecting like
Well,
a
That's our
yeah.
next project.
Oh,
yes.
absolutely. That's the rom-com. See, that's the
That's
rom-com.
it. That's it. That's it. We were there beside each other the whole time and we
It's
never knew.
also historical fiction, so just you wait.
Nice, nice. Well, I'm hoping that this is not the only collaboration to be then, since the two of you have found one
Mhm.
another. I hope there's a path forward and a plan and a mastermind scheme to continue sharing stories. I'll just go ahead and mention that here at the beginning.
Yeah, well, since you've mentioned it in the beginning, I can already tell you that we have after the Last Wardens, or even during, but two more books already on their way with Humanoids Publishing, two
Nice.
graphic novels that are gonna probably come out 2025. We've been working on them for a while. They're gonna have a very different tone and vibe from both my and our work with Mad Cave Studios.
Hmm.
And that's all I'm going to say about that for now. But yes, we are working together we're working together on a bunch of different projects. We have ones that have already been published, ones that are in development, and we're starting to pitch around right now. But yeah, there's more coming.
Love it, love it. Love when you find your people.
Hmm?
Yes.
I said I love when you find your people.
Oh, yes, yes, indeed.
Yeah.
Well,
So you two have been creating and continue creating. What's the collaboration like? What's the process like for you? Is there yelling? Is there fighting?
Oh, yeah. Every morning. Every morning he wakes me up at 5 with the yelling. It's crazy.
pretty much, pretty much. This is just me hounding him, cracking the whip. Uh,
But yeah,
no,
I think oh, go ahead.
yeah,
You
go
want me to go
ahead.
ahead? Oh yeah. So I think we both kind of bring different stuff to the table. Um, like for example, when it comes to storytelling, Amit has lived this really insane, intense life. So some of the like story elements that he brings to the table are often pretty dark and gritty. But I come skipping out of the Midwest. So like I come with like a plaid t-shirt, some Mackinac Island fudge in each hand. So I kind of bring like the lighter elements to the story. So we hit the hard notes, but we leave them with a smile, which is what counts. Um,
Yeah, my big you already know my style because you've read Eden Frost, where my comfort zone is. I'm big into
Hmm.
historical fiction. I'm big into drama. I am into, in general, darker tones, and working with Elliot does balance me out. But that's, if we look at that those are all the creative elements, and I think you used a very good word to describe, um, to define how it is that we work. It's a process, and it's a very structured one. And like it starts with, if I had to just like break it down, it always starts with, you have to kind of identify the components that you need, right? Which is, all right, we're trying to get this to a point of sale. We're trying to pitch this to a publisher. We need to have a sizzle deck. We need to have our plotting laid out. We need to have a presentation, whether it's verbal or just something that we can send over email. And we need to have some initial designs often, so to illustrate to our buyers what it is that we want to do. But a core part of that production process or that development process really comes down to something that I'm also very used to from, working in tech or in software, which is just domain expertise. So in each domain, one of us leads, one of us follows, and we delegate tasks to each other. And when I say domain expertise, I mean, story, visual, and operations, which are all part of this entire creative process. So, that doesn't just include the comic itself, but social media, marketing, PR, pitch, production logistics, essentially everything within this process, one of us has final say on, and that makes the process a lot more organized and a lot less fluid. And when you add milestones and scheduling to that, which is part of operations, you just become very, very efficient. So there's room for the, just creative fun of it, but you do have to treat it like a job. You have to treat it as an obligation that needs to be done correctly. And Elliot can jump in and tell you a little bit more about the process itself.
Yeah, so it starts, obviously, like we said before, where he calls me at 5 a.m. and starts yelling. But for real, we start with discussions. Really, we just kind of start brainstorming and constructing a core idea, what the themes are, who the characters are, what the story arc and kind of design choices are for it. And we just start casually and start breaking it down. But then, obviously you have to move on to production, where we actually start, writing and designing the pitch deck, creating art, designing guides, going over our verbal pitch presentation routine. And then from there, we move on to reviewing each other's work and kind of just do a quality assurance on it. We edit it, refine, polish, and eventually we lock into something that we think is sales ready.
Yeah. And the sales, like at that point, it's all about like, we make a viable list of like, these are all of our sales targets. And by sales targets, I mean publishers, right? Like those who offer the kinds of deals that we want and also have interest in our type of product. For example, finger puppet romance, apparently. And at that point, it really comes down to iteration, which is a big part of it that I think, I wouldn't say often overlooked by creatives, but I've seen it snubbed before or not being integrated into part of a process. So, but what I mean by iteration is, you pitch it, then you get feedback, and if you need, you reassess, you revise, and you essentially try again and hopefully reach that sweet spot that, a publisher just goes like, yes, this is what I want. Because no matter what you go and pitch out there, like it's whether it's a TV show, a game, a technology product, a comic, you're gonna get 99% no's, and that's just something you have to be ready for. And you don't really control the whims of the market. You don't really control what buyers are looking for. A lot of people go, this is my baby, and I'm gonna double down and just like this, nobody's gonna touch or change anything. And I don't think that's a really healthy or humble method of looking at anything. And I'm not a humble person, but this is where I'm willing to be like, to be humbled and go, okay, maybe something here doesn't work, or maybe the timing for it isn't right. Like, how do we keep the heart of it and still be able to iterate and make something that will be appealing to both current market, like the readers, and to our partners, the publishers, which you rely on in order to get it out there. And I think that gives you a very healthy relationship with this process as a whole. And it certainly has worked for us, because I can tell you the Last Warden specifically it's gone through many iterations before the current one. It went through multiple name changes, multiple pitches, multiple redesigns, some characters shifted. Like literally our protagonist, Danielle Pryor, she's basically what created this last iteration. In the early ones, she wasn't even there at all. So
Oh,
you
wow.
never know where it's going to go as you kind of go back to the drawing table and go like, okay, let's start moving things around. And it's also a fun part of the process. So we do that with everything.
You learn a lot for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love the creative joy of being able to work on things and kind of tinker that way. But I'm also a person who finds great joy in a to-do list. So great to hear
Yes.
about the strategy as well.
Mm.
Otherwise, I imagine you would be looking at each other saying, "Hey, did you send that pitch? No, did you? No, did you?"
Oh,
That's why we've
man.
not
So,
heard back yet.
Jason, I'm not gonna share it here, but one of the first things we have, my wife is an amazing project manager, and she built an entire database in Notion for us. And we basically have a task list with deadlines, with contact. Like we are organized as hell. So
Nice.
thought you would appreciate that.
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. You also mentioned some of those darker turns of stories. So we're getting ready to talk a little more closely about Last Wardens and some of the inspirations, but I appreciate the darker stories in some ways because it's nice to have a feel-good story, but it's also really nice to dig into something that allows for a whole different set of emotions. So I appreciate that as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you got to hit them hard.
Yes. And Elliot, if you want to talk about inspirations, I mean,
yeah, absolutely. So obviously, as you know, Amit, big history buff, with Eden Frost. So that was great to lean on, especially in a period piece like the 1970s, which is when this story takes place. But I'm sorry, just jumping into the stuff I'm excited about. I like the influences I was able to put on the art front were really fun. So we kind of put in everything from design. Like I was influenced by stuff I loved a lot growing up, like the Zoanoids from Bio Booster Armor Guyver, if you know that. This is a weird one. I get a lot of side looks for this one, but the Kraken from the early 2000s movie Deep Rising is clearly like an influence. Even though, listen, that movie is like I like it ironically, but you know what? An influence is an influence.
Don't apologize.
No,
That's right. Own your Treat
Okay.
Williams enjoyment. It's totally fine.
But you also see a lot of cool other cool stuff, like took influence from monsters and magic items from Dungeons and Dragons. And obviously you're going to see a lot of other like little 70s shout outs. Like you're going to see some call outs to the original Evil Dead, Jaws at a certain point, which is kind of weird but fun.
Yeah.
And obviously you're going to see a smidgen of Scooby-Doo, like just a little, just a sprinkle, right?
Yes. And now I'm anticipating the last issue. Somebody's like, and I was this person the whole time, but we won't.
You're not supposed to guess the twist on the podcast.
Oh, sorry. Would have gotten away with it too. Would have gotten away with
it. In this case, our little Scooby Gang aren't as lucky as the famous Scooby Gang. That's all I can say about that.
Yes. As one might expect. I think the word grindhouse has been applied. I think that was part of the promo material, which I could totally see from looking at the issue you shared.
Yeah, absolutely. We have this social media campaign going on that I was in charge of building, and we really leaned into that 1970s look. But it helped a lot with our colorist, Francesco, who also leaned into those colors and knocked it out of the park. Like his stuff is just fantastic to look at. So, I mean, you saw the preview pages, so you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, and that element, like those social media campaigns, you've seen me do that with Eden Frost before, and we're basically doing this now with Wardens, and it's something that we are now going to incorporate into all of our projects, where we want to identify. There's this interesting intersection between how you present a project in order to attract the right readers, the readers are going to enjoy it, but also how you kind of, it's not mislead, but you're drawing them in order to give them something that they don't necessarily expect that they would appreciate more. Because the grindhouse theme that Elliot kind of built around the campaign gives you the vibe of, hey, this is what this story would probably be promoted as if it came out in the time that it's happening, right? In the 1970s. Oh, it'll probably be treated. It's horror and it's gory and it's supernatural. So it's essentially under that umbrella, and this is how we're going to market it. But the form of storytelling in The Last Wardens itself is very much modern, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is not a grindhouse story in a script sense or in a narrative sense. It has a lot more depth. It has a lot more emotion. It does feel more like the modern generation, horror, let's say, literature or media, more like, let's say, what Mike Flanagan would do for Netflix, as opposed to a, grindhouse or very cheesy 80s kind of horror film that came out during that time.
Yeah, I can totally see that. Having just seen a glimpse, and love the idea of taking something that folks are familiar with and giving them something a bit new as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Trojan horsing.
That's right. Exactly. You've mentioned several cinematic connections, so I appreciate that as parts of the recipe that are baked in.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, and like we had basically we had a lot of cinematic references, and we also have some awesome pull quotes from people who have worked in film, because we've been across media throughout our entire career and met a lot of interesting people that we just get to call upon and say, hey, what do you think about this? So that's been very gratifying as well.
Yeah. Well, with Deep Rising in mind, now I'll be looking for like a character on a ski boat, kind of like going through an
You know the
iron
reference.
wall of some kind.
Oh my God, that movie, it cracks me up every time.
Yes.
But yeah, not quite the reference that we use. Although,
Yes,
I
we're
mean,
going more for
no,
the creature. Yes.
yeah, but
Yeah.
we're definitely going to add a jet ski into the next thing 100%. That's
Fantastic.
done.
Fantastic.
That's happening. So
Now I'm picturing finger puppets, romantic comedy, jet ski.
I
I
think this is
mean,
coming together.
I really think so. I really think so. Well, I think I have one more official question that was on the list I shared with you. And of course, we can touch on anything that we missed. But if I'm a listener out there that's thinking, where can I see this work and where can I follow up and see what's coming from this creative team? Where do I go and what do I search and what might I find?
Yeah. So, like, first of all, we both have our websites that are based on our name. So my website is www.amittishler.com, and Elliot's is www.elliotsperl.com.
Very
Uh,
original.
yeah, very original. As we said, we have a big social media campaign coming out, and it's a lot of really, really cool content, honestly. Like, I would encourage people to follow us on really whatever social media platforms that you're currently engaging on. We're on all of them, whether it's Threads, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. If you're sick of all the political bullshit that's on there and you want something a little bit more fun, we tend to focus on promoting our stuff in a really cool way. So in the next, I don't know, 8 months, there's an entire content slate just around The Last Wardens that's going to come out, and it will be kind of wild. And you'll also get to see a lot of the things coming down the line once we start promoting them, which should start happening closer to the end of the year. As well as I'm running a newsletter called Mind Splatter that's been running for almost 2 years now, where I talk about a lot of our upcoming projects. So it's worth following as well if you want some exclusive content and you're interested in some of the behind the scenes of developing these kinds of things. And that should be it.
Fantastic. Did we miss anything that we want to make sure to include before we close out?
Honestly, I just kind of want to do a quick shout out to the artist working on the book.
Yes, to the entire
Rui, our artist Rui. Oh my God, just fantastic work.
Yeah.
His ability to draw monster expressions, and you'll see they're challenging to do. Like, they're not easy designs, but he rocks it every time. And weirdly enough, you'll see it in the full issue 1, but he did something in issue 1 that we had to go back in and kind of essentially rewrite the script for going forward when it comes to the layout.
Yeah.
Nice.
And just kind of implement across the board, which is really fun. I won't spoil it, but it's great.
Yep.
And Zach Howard with the covers, which are just, Oh, chef kiss, amazing, love it.
Yeah.
We just saw a preview for issue 4, and it's oh my, so good. It's so great.
And
So,
all the pain that we've put our letterer Frank through.
of course.
Because we have a lot of little planted riddles and hints scattered about, the origins of the wardens. A lot of little Easter eggs that we're hoping that as we get to make more stories in this world, we kind of get to expand on. But as we're sprinkling these things in, we're really glad that Frank was a good sport and putting up with really requests that are more illustrative, even for a letterer, right? Like more than the usual. And he was really, really good about it. And as always, like, the same editor that worked with me on Eden Frost, James B. Emmett, who is a freaking legend. He's great. He's good as both an editor and as a project manager. So I always want to give him and Mad Cave a shout out because they have been massive advocates and have just been fantastic to us and honestly like all of their creators. So read their books. They're fantastic.
They are.
Really are. Yeah. I think we all can agree on that for sure. Well, anything nice that you'd like to say about each other before we end the episode?
Oh my God.
The morning yelling is spot on.
No, I love working with this guy. He's fantastic. I think our work together is so fun to do. It's literally the highlight of every day. So it's great.
And I love how well Elliot lies. Like he's just phenomenal at it.
That's what you want in a writer, am I right? You want somebody that can craft not just a single lie, but like a whole.
There you go. Like he's able to just do it like while being recorded. Amazing.
I need that on a t-shirt really bad.
No, look, working with Elliot has been good for my balance as well, because once again, he brings in something to the table that just, like weird to say, but completes me or creates a different kind of product from what I would create on my own, which I think that's what you always want to aspire to when you're collaborating as opposed to working solo. When you work solo, it's very clear this is your voice. When you work with someone and you feel that influence and you really see a different product come out of it that still feels great and still feels like a unique voice, that's the highest praise, and that's also the highest, let's say, the best form of partnership that you can have. So there you go.
Ditto.
There it is. You just got McGuired. You complete him. You complete him. All of the mid to late 90s references.
I was going to say, there's a theme to this podcast now.
That's right. Well, many thanks to you both for a wonderful conversation. Glad to have you back anytime. And I'm looking forward to seeing the issues as they shape up and come out.
Thanks for having us so much.
Always a pleasure. Always a pleasure.